1 hour down, 2 to go here on the early line on SportsGrid. In for Ben Stevens, I am Adam Kaufman, joined by Joe Raineri, a regular here on this program. Thank you for watching. Of course, if you are across SportsGrid TV, the bevy of ways that you can consume this program, SportsGrid Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 159, social media, however you are finding us, we are sure glad here on this morning after Christmas that you have, and talking a lot about what went on in the NFL yesterday. It was, kind of boring, unless, of course, you're on the right side with your bet slips, invested in the Chiefs, invested in the Ravens, invested in certain player props, Derrick Henry among others, and we'll do a whole lot more in the NBA on the way as well. We're still taking a look at some Super Bowl odds and, really trying to examine what this is going to look like, Joe, and who can compete, and does it deserve to be as top heavy as obviously the odds board is, all of it. We've been talking about which teams present value in the AFC, who could, in theory, challenge Kansas City, and we've agreed, as most people would, that it's, like some of these other teams, they're cute. They're in the dance. Good for you. But really, in terms of making a run, it's KC, it's Buffalo, it's Baltimore. All that said, we've been talking about strengths and weaknesses of the two teams that have not won back-to-back Super Bowls. How about the Chiefs? I mean, 3 in a row, man, doesn't happen. It's unprecedented. Do we believe that, led by Andy Reid, with Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce at his advanced football age, and these guys that are emerging here late in the season, Xavier Worthy among them, and Brown now available, Hollywood Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, and what he can do. Hell, Juju Smith-Schuster will have a big catch from time to time. Is Kansas City going to do this again? Like, do we realistically believe the Chiefs are going to, Jordan this thing in three-peat?
Listen, if you asked anybody 6 weeks ago if Buffalo would catch Kansas City, would Kansas City fall off here and not get the number 1 seed? Would it go through Orchard Park or through Baltimore? We all would have said they can't cover any games. They're so lucky. It's unbelievable. At some point, this has to turn around. Well, it's turned around. They've gotten healthier, and they still haven't lost a game. In fact, they look like they're getting better. So, I'm a big believer of you're the champion until somebody beats you. And to this point, they've lost 1 game this year, and they're better now than they have been at any point in the season. So, hell yeah, they can win an unprecedented third one in a row. Absolutely, they can here. And quite honestly, at nearly 4-1, at plus 400, plus 390, the Lions aren't beating them. The Vikings aren't beating them. The Packers, I don't see who is beating them in the NFC if they represent the AFC. I just don't see it. I think, without a doubt, the Chiefs should be the favorite to win this one. And I think it's all going to come down to whoever wins that championship game in Arrowhead. I think we can all fairly agree it's the Bills-Chiefs, right? So if you think the Bills are doing it, this is their year. Now's the time to bet them at plus 470 there, Adam, because I don't see it getting any worse. I don't think you're going to get them 6-1, 7-1 at any point here. I think it's only going to go down from here. So it would not shock me. If you like the Bills and you don't already have a ticket, bet them now. But if you think the Chiefs are going to three-peat, forget about the three-peat scenario. The reality is the Chiefs are playing the best football of the year. They're 15-1, and they have been there and done that and have more experience than any other team on that list. They should be the favorite to win it all. And if they represent the AFC, they will win it a third time in a row, because I don't think the NFC has anybody that's going to beat them.
And if we're talking about exactas, let's just, who do you love in the NFC? Like, for me, and I've been saying this for weeks, I would love to see a Bills-Lions Super Bowl. It's obviously it's not super long odds compared to, some of the combinations you could put together. It's a little chalky. Removing Kansas City is one thing, but the Lions, they've been at the top of that NFC basically all year. When you bring in the NFC, I guess my question to start here is this, though. There are a lot of teams, bottom half down, you can just eliminate. Say like, all right, I mean, you're in the playoffs, cool, but you're not realistically going to win the Super Bowl. You can't. Runs like that aren't going to happen for teams like you. And so you have the Chiefs, you have the Lions, you have the Bills, you have the Eagles, you have the Ravens, you have the Vikings. Do you stop there when you're examining teams that you realistically believe can win the Super Bowl, or do the Packers and Rams make the cut for you?
Well, the Rams make the cut for one reason and one reason only for me, okay? And I'll ask you this. You put that list up there, and you tell me, AFC, NFC, rank the quarterbacks on this page. What conference has the best quarterbacks?
Sure. No, you're right. I mean, let's see. If I'm ranking them, obviously you're gonna have those 3 MVP caliber guys in the AFC, and then on the other side, I mean, look, I don't love Stafford, but I like what he's got around him. Jared Goff, you're right. But he's got the experience, and then
Sam Darnold,
Jordan Love. Certainly Sam Darnold's not a guy that I want to see in the Super Bowl.
I'd even put Jaden Daniels over a few of those guys. I'd even put Jaden Daniels higher.
Sure. Well, and truthfully, we're sitting here presuming health for Jalen Hurts. We don't know, so it's
correct.
It's clear AFC to NFC in that regard. At the quarterback position, there's no competition.
Yep, and we know we're going to get it. To me, I think we all know coming out of the AFC, whether it's Chiefs, Ravens, Bills, we're going to have the better quarterback heading into that big game, right? And that matters, and we know that matters in the NFL. Which means everybody else from the NFC, whoever is representing, they're going to need to have the game of their life in order to outduel that other quarterback, and I just don't see it happening.
How much does coaching matter to you at this stage in this sport? Like, for instance, that Sean McVay, obviously, and there are a lot of good coaches in the NFL at the top of that list, for sure. But, I look at someone like McVay, who is just as the seasons go on, as you get deeper into the year, he's a legitimate coach when it comes to sort of nut cutting time. You know what I mean? Like I was looking at the Lions earlier. Of course, they play. Who are they at against this week? Lions Niners Monday Night Football. Detroit is sitting at in terms of its trend. I think it's like 16-3 or some ridiculous number in December games against the spread, under McVay, and 4-0 this month, by the way. And obviously they've now been to multiple Super Bowls. This team finds a way. Now it's just, can the defense, which has been so bad throughout this year, we know what the offense is capable of when healthy, and it is healthy right now, but the defense, can we think highly enough of this team on the whole to put it in that conversation with some of the upper echelon of these other teams?
I can make an argument that Stafford's the best quarterback the NFC has. We can both make that argument because he's got the ring on his finger, and he's got a Super Bowl winning coach that's been there not once but twice to the big game. So as far as experience goes, and the quarterback position, you can't discount the Rams. Everybody else, it's all new there except for Sirianni and the Eagles, and we're worried about whether, obviously, if Jalen Hurts remains in a concussion protocol, Philadelphia's got issues. But I do think you can't discount the Rams because of the coach and because of the quarterback, and that matters in January. We all know it.
Yeah, and a quick correction, not the Monday Night Football, the late game Saturday. The Rams are playing host to the Cardinals, but yeah. It's going to be interesting. This one should be in LA. We'll be back.
So my team didn't win this weekend, but I still did with this app that's taking over the game. Sports Millions Pick'em lets you make quick and easy predictions. Pick your favorite players, go higher or lower, and you can still win big even if your team loses. Plus, the multiplier is insane. With just a few picks, you can win big money. So get on it. They've got a welcome bonus to help you start off your winning streak.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, we've been doing a lot of NFL over the first hour and change of the show. Let's get back to the NBA because, you know, as LeBron James pointed out, the NBA once was Christmas, right? I mean, Christmas belonged to the NBA, at least in terms of sports. But classic. I mean, we're guilty of it too. Oh, the NFL's around. Let's talk about the NFL. No, listen, we had 5 games, most of which were much better than anything we saw on the football field yesterday happening on the hardwood. And it began with just a monster showing, a really fun game, Joe, over at MSG, Madison Square Garden, where the Knicks, in a back-and-forth affair with Wemby and the Spurs, emerged for a 3-point win. Just a great showing out of Victor Wembanyama in San Antonio. This is a team that, as I said earlier, is going to be playing on Christmas Day for years to come. 15-15 now for the Spurs, which is noteworthy just because I do think we're going to see this team in the playoffs. Right now, it's sitting in the hunt in terms of the play-in tournament, but you love the leap that this team has taken under Greg Popovich, year 1 to year 2 of Wemby to where they are right now. Another great coach while we're talking about those. But the Knicks, obviously a contender in the Eastern Conference and a team showing its depth yet again. We're always talking about Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns. It was Mikal Bridges who had 41 points on a incredibly efficient 17 of 25 yesterday. Just had to withstand Wemby on the other side, who in his Christmas debut went for 40 plus and almost 20 rebounds.
Yeah, well, the story in this game, I mean, is San Antonio really came out and smacked the Knicks early in this game here, and it was all about, of course, Wembanyama there, who was everything to the San Antonio Spurs. I mean, 42 points, 16 to 31. I've got a big problem with a 7'2" dude taking 16 shots from 3. And he made 6 of those. But he did have 18 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 blocks, 1 steal, played 40 minutes. And the reason this game was on at noon, quite honestly, is because it was 6 o'clock in Paris. You think that had anything to do with it? And he delivered. We're going to be seeing Wembanyama for years to come. But the reality is he doesn't have the supporting cast that, let's say a Jalen Brunson has, who wasn't great in this game. But what the Knicks did do is what championship and experienced teams do, is that when they needed, and they were terrible from 3, 13 to 39 from outside. But Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, down the stretch, they all hit huge threes when they needed it. And then, of course, they led on the boards. They led in steals. When they needed to make a play, they did it. They got it done. That's the mark of a pretty darn good experienced and playoff team. That's what the Knicks are. But the Spurs played good enough to win a game on the road in a tough environment. But they got to have more than just Wembanyama. And unfortunately, right now, that's all they have.
You know, Joe, this is 5 straight wins for the Knicks. They have won 8 of 10, sitting 2 games behind the Celtics for the 2nd seed in the Eastern Conference, 6 games out behind Cleveland for the top overall spot. Long season, obviously, is a long way to go. They're 30 games into an 80-plus game season. But Karl Anthony Towns, who, solid yesterday, even though he came below his season averages, he has been on a tear. He's averaging 25 points and 14 rebounds overall for the year. I think, as many people as there were excited about that trade involving he and Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo in the offseason, I think Towns has fit in with this offense, fit in under Tibbs, fit in with Brunson, fit in with the Knicks and their culture a lot better than people even necessarily anticipated. Things are going really, really well.
Yeah, things are going great. And, listen, to your point, he's fit in well. And the Knicks, everyone felt that they might have been one player away. Well, they had to go on a 23-9 run yesterday in order to come back and win that game against San Antonio. And you know who was not on the floor because he had 5 fouls and didn't have any part in that run? Karl Anthony Towns. So as good as he has been, the Knicks, you mentioned it, Mikal Bridges. Karl Anthony Towns has been great, one of the best scorers in the NBA so far this year. I mean, he's really changed the dynamic of this Knicks team. But as the Knicks showed, all right, we don't have Karl Anthony Towns tonight. You know what? Mikal Bridges steps up, or Jalen Brunson steps up, or Hart, or Anunoby. We have seen these guys rotate. That's the mark of a great team, and that's what the Knicks are right now. They are feeling it even when their best player, and I can make the argument that so far this year Karl Anthony Towns has been their best player. But you know what? Everybody else stepped up when he wasn't available, and that's what you win championships. Karl Anthony Towns could have been that missing piece the Knicks have been looking for this year. Hasn't worked all that well for Minnesota, but certainly it looks like it's working very well for the New York Knicks.
Well, you mentioned Minnesota. Julius Randle did have a solid game. He was very good yesterday in what was effectively a blowout of the Mavericks in Dallas. 23 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists. You maybe say, what do you mean, Kaufman? Like, it was a blowout, 6-point win. Yeah, but, Dallas outscored the Timberwolves by 16 in the fourth quarter to make that game look more respectable than it actually was throughout the majority of it. Kyrie Irving went for damn near half of Dallas's points. He was awesome. 39 points in that game, especially locked in after Luka went down. But that's the story. This team that was in the NBA Finals last year, the Dallas Mavericks, Minnesota, of course, on the other side was a hopeful there, fell short in the Western Conference playoffs. Luka Doncic expects to miss considerable time. That's the fear anyway on the part of the Mavs with this calf strain. How much does that change the dynamic of what we have seen so far out of the Mavs this year?
Well, it's not the first time that he's going to miss games, right? But it's interesting with this Dallas Mavericks team. They are very deep. They are very consistent. They have been here and done this before with Doncic. They have more than enough talent and firepower to hold down the fort until they can get him back 100%. Maybe a month, maybe a little bit more. But Dallas is not, I am confident, not going to fall off a cliff because Doncic is no longer available to him. I think they'll be fine. Just get him healthy at the end of January and February, and they'll be ready to make another run.
5 games across the NBA yesterday. That's a couple of them, but a few more to go and some really compelling ones. Some tight finishes across the association on the hardwood. More than we can say about what happened to the gridiron in the NFL. Absolutely gross. More on the NBA when we come back.
Uncle Stevie can just walk up the aisle like he's at the supermarket. I'll get a starting pitcher here, I'll get a closer here, I'll get a first baseman here, and he'll just keep throwing things in the cart because there is no limit.
Now he's gone, so they got to go get arms to make that team better. Because the bottom line was they were just outclassed by the Dodgers. Let's face it, they got their ass beat.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I want the mid-major teams. I want the A-10 to get 3 bids. I want, the Missouri Valley Conference to get an extra bid. I want these teams to go ahead that are 1-bid leagues and give some of these other teams opportunities to make the NCAA tournament. Simply put, folks, when we get to the tournament, we don't care about all these teams that are big-time teams.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred, or just worked on the side, or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
The NFL and college, they don't operate on the same timelines, right? UNLV's head coach just got, the Purdue job this morning, where I imagine, right, UNC probably needs to know from Bill.
And let's say it's late December, and we see 7, 8 teams open, and none of them want Bill. Then Bill's got to make a decision. Does he want to be a college head coach?
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
One home team had a Garden win yesterday. That was, of course, the Knicks at Madison Square Garden. Over at TD Garden, not the case for the Celtics. Narrow loss against the Philadelphia 76ers, Joe. And I think there are a number of interesting things about this game. Boston, of course, dropping to 22-8, 4 games back of Cleveland for the top spot in the Eastern Conference. A little shorthanded. We mentioned no Drew Holiday on the holiday. Where's that narrative street play, man? Kristaps Porzingis goes down early with the injury. Took Jason Tatum a while to get going. Ultimately did lead that team. The Sixers, sort of a roller coaster ride of emotions. Go pregame like Joel Embiid. There were concerns he wasn't going to play. All of social media is laughing at him. He actually does get in there, has a respectable game, and Philadelphia completes the upset. Wins on Christmas Day, improves now to 11-17. Now, I have been saying the Sixers are dead and never going to figure it out for a while now. Just injuries, attitude, makeup, roster composition, coaching, any number of different factors. This team is only a game out now of the play-in tournament. And again, a long, long season ahead. Have I been too hard on the Sixers? We can debate whether or not yesterday was any sort of indictment on the defending champion Celtics. But with the Sixers, is this a team that actually, like Milwaukee before it, can turn its season around?
Well, I mean, this wasn't an anomaly. They've won 8 of their last 11 games to get to 11-17 on the season. And like you mentioned, just 1 game back. But this is not this wasn't a shock yesterday, so to speak, because it was just the 6th time that we have seen their big 3 play a game together. And there is no doubt when you have Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey on the court, they are a totally different team, the 76ers. Mix in the fact that Caleb Martin came back and absolutely destroyed the Celtics again, like he used to do there with Miami. And now you've got yourself just a pretty formidable team coming out of the East. The big question is going to be, can they all stay healthy and play enough games together, though, right? That's always going to be the million-dollar question. But there is no doubt that the Sixers have been figuring it out over the last couple of weeks here. You win 8 out of your last 11 games in some tough environments, in some big spots, and then you put your big three together and go to Boston on the road on Christmas and beat them. You're not going to get any sympathy for being shorthanded from the Philadelphia 76ers, Celtics. But there is no doubt we cannot stick a fork in this team because those three guys, they're difference makers. That is a much more dangerous team with those three guys on the court against anybody, including the champion Celtics. So I wouldn't be sticking a fork in them just yet, but how confident can you be that all three can stay healthy long enough in order to get them there?
Now, for the Celtics, is this just, another game? Like, we would be, the conversation would be much different. It'd be like, oh, they can't win on Christmas Day. They can't beat Joel Embiid, right, blah, 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 if they hadn't won last year. But when you win, obviously, that removes a whole hell of a lot from the conversation, changes the narrative to where it's just, as long as they are healthy come April, does any of this for Boston matter?
No. There shouldn't be any big picture issues or concerns here as far as their ability to repeat as a champion. Now, having said that, this is the first time that I think they've lost back-to-back games all year long. They have lost 3 of their last 4. They lost this game not because they didn't have Holiday or Porzingis. They lost this game because their bench couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat. Pritchard went 0 for 8 from 3. Sam Hauser, I think, and Pritchard had a total of 4 points. They lost because their bench didn't show up, and their bench usually does show up here. So Tatum did his thing, Brown did his thing, Horford did his thing. They could have won this game. They didn't because their bench did not show up. They will eventually show up again. I think the Celtics will be fine. But it's very weird how bad they are at home against the number, and defensively, by the way, versus what they are on the road. Much better defensively on the road than they have been at home.
Couple pretty exciting games in the Western Conference as well to wrap up Christmas Day. You had, of course, the Lakers and the Warriors. It was a showdown of stars past, maybe stars present. Depends on your perspective of the aging LeBron James and Steph Curry. And on the other side, you also had the Suns and Nuggets. Talk about KD versus the Joker when we come back.
As the candles flicker, a new tradition shines. 8 nights of Hanukkah, 8 nights of winning insights.
They may come out slow, so you might be able to get a better number.
Wow, they're favored.
With SportsGrid, every night is another chance to win.
No pick sixes today, they cover. So let's crunch it up. Let's make it happen. Let's give you our favorite props.
Let your Hanukkah winnings brighten your celebrations. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching!
Why? Because it's parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this bet than I do for this year. I'm ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
You don't want them to go 13-0 and then lose the first round of the playoffs.
Red.
Yeah, this is their last shot. They don't really have anywhere else to go yet.
Hot take.
By the time I hit, I guess what, Route 33 up here, that ticket's cashing.
Only on SportsGrid. In the heart of winter, when nights grow long, we come together under these lights. A team, united by purpose. Fans bound by passion. Each holding a small flicker of hope in their hands. At SportsGrid, we believe that even the darkest nights can't dim the unity we share. One team, one stadium, one shining moment. This holiday season, we shine brighter together. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
Two teams that are kind of middle of the pack in terms of the Western Conference, but put on a show yesterday, the Lakers and the Warriors. We are halfway home here on the early line. Thanks for being with us on Sports Grid. A lot more NBA and NFL still to come. Tom Vecchio is going to join us in a bit as well, about an hour, to help us preview tonight's football game, Thursday Night Football. You got to love how often we're getting NFL. The two games Wednesday, Thursday. We have Saturday, Sunday, Monday. What a wonderful time of year indeed. But, Joe, Lakers emerged. 2-point win, although it was not easy, obviously. Steph Curry just would not go away. Huge threes down the stretch, including the game-tying three with, like a second or two left before Austin Reeves ultimately brought the game home with an easy layup for the Lakers. But Curry, 8 of 15 from three, turned back the clock, 38 points. LeBron James, especially after Anthony Davis went down with an injury, he left this one after only 7 minutes, didn't score, had 2 rebounds, said he's going to be good to play on Saturday, but LeBron took over from there, had 31 points, 10 assists, a triple-double out of Reeves, which, when does that happen? So what'd you make of J.J. Redick's Lakers yesterday?
I give Redick credit there because he had to pivot and figure some things out quickly when Anthony Davis, twisted the ankle there. And he went really kind of small there and spread the court and let LeBron do his thing. I mean, Austin Reeves and LeBron both had over 10 assists, I think, or 10 or more assists apiece. And that was because they spaced the floor. And the Golden State Warriors really didn't have an answer. Now, the Warriors, who usually turn the ball over a million times a game, did a pretty good job of, I think they only had a dozen turnovers in the game. They average at least 14 a game on the year. They shot 40% from three. Anthony Davis did not hurt them. But the minute that they went small, the Lakers, and LeBron and Austin Reeves started playing pitch and catch, and give credit, again, to J.J. Redick for figuring out the best way to attack him on the fly. Max Christie had big shots. Hachimura had big shots. It was a true team effort by the Lakers, who were coming off of that ridiculous loss to Detroit a couple of nights ago. But LeBron did his things. Listen, Steph did his thing, 38 points. But they really fell short late there when they needed it. Kuminga was solid, but this was basically what the Warriors have been all year long. Inconsistent, Curry not getting any help, or Curry not showing up at all, and Golden State looking lost at the end of a game or trying to make a comeback because they can't figure it out for 3 quarters. Good win for the Lakers. Head scratching for Golden State on what they're doing here at this point.
Two other teams in the West cap the night on Christmas night, Joe, that are pretty similar standings-wise to the ones we just talked about with the Lakers and Warriors, and that is the Nuggets and the Suns. I was on the Denver side in this virtual pick'em. It felt like the right side with no Devin Booker for Phoenix, but it wasn't. Credit Kevin Durant and most especially Bradley Beal. Honestly, in this one, Beal, made it look like the Washington days some. Had 27 points in this one, 11 of 21 shooting, matched Kevin Durant also with 27. On the other side, Joker, Nikola Jokic, 25 and 15. He was great. Michael Porter Jr., excellent with 22 points. Some of those coming after Aaron Gordon went down. Gordon only played 7 or rather had 7 points, only played 19 minutes in this one before he left with an injury. But Phoenix put him away at the end. It was a 10-point win.
So the Phoenix Suns are a hot mess too, but they did get, Durant and Bradley Beal finally got some help with a few other guys, but more importantly, they actually played some defense there last night. And the only thing that kept me off this game, because I usually like with these home and homes, which is what this was. Don't forget, Denver was coming off a game. It was the second of a back-to-back. They had to go home and take on the Phoenix Suns. Suns were rested a couple of nights ago. Literally no Jamal Murray for Denver. There was no excuse for Phoenix to get blown out in that game, and that's exactly what happened. And usually I like to back the team that loses the first game there and look for the split, especially with Phoenix going home. But nothing that I saw from Phoenix in that game led me to believe that they were even capable of winning this game, which is why I stayed off of it. But you got to give them credit. Jamal Murray makes it back into the lineup. It's once again Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal, but at least they brought some defense here and ended up winning the Jokic minutes, which is important. 25 and 15 on the board, but actually the Phoenix Suns won his minutes, and that is how you beat the Denver Nuggets. Great win for Phoenix. Now let's see him do it again until they can get Booker back.
Your top teams across the NBA. In the East, of course, Cleveland and overall at 26-4, the Celtics, the Knicks. On the other side, the Thunder, who we didn't see yesterday either, 23-5. The Rockets, the Grizzlies. We can include them in the conversation just at 20-10, more than respectable, obviously. But when we're looking at the futures market in the NBA, knowing that we're not even halfway through the year, Joe, we're, third of the way, let's call it, through the year, a little bit more than that. But Celtics and Thunder, these are the chalk. These are the teams that, I think a lot of people probably have exactas on in terms of facing off in the NBA Finals. Boston on FanDuel at plus 200 to win the championship. The Thunder at plus 310. Then you start to get into the neighborhood of value, obviously. The Knicks, 10-1. Nuggets, 16-1. We've seen Jokic do it before. Mavericks, even with this Luka injury, sitting at 16-1. The Suns, also 16-1. What about the disrespect, if we call it that, for the Cleveland Cavaliers, coming in 7th at 17-1, despite having the league's best record right now?
Yeah, that's, you just said it, right? Seems a little disrespectful here, but given the history of all the teams that are in front of them there and the big name players they have, it's kind of hard to say that the Cavs are even though it's been an amazing start, we all know what matters, and it's not games that are played by the time we get to Christmas. It's what's going to happen from this point on that matters. And you got to give the Knicks credit, too. Listen, I can argue the way the Knicks offensively have played here and what they're showing, that 10-1 might be a little disrespectful. The Nuggets have a lot of issues depth-wise there. This is going to be a big effort by Denver to be able to get back to where they want to go. And Dallas, once again, now we got to deal with the injury to Doncic. So there are a lot of people I think the Cavs can pass that are in front of them from an odds perspective. But at 17-1 now, hey, is it worth a shot? Absolutely. They still have to get by the Celtics, and we know that. But at 17-1, is that number going to get any worse, in your opinion, as the season stretches on here? I don't know.
How do you feel about the chalk at the top? I mean, I know a lot of people don't like to bet chalk, but, at a certain point, plus money is plus money. If you think the Celtics and or Thunder are just head and shoulders that much better than the NBA, could you talk yourself into those numbers?
I can't. I mean, to me, it would be all about finding value with these, 15, 16-1, 17-1, 20-1 teams like the Bucks or even the Cavs here at that. And then, having that in your back pocket and looking for an opportunity as the season progresses where if injuries strike OKC or the Celtics or any of these chalky teams, you have a pretty good opportunity to hedge there as we get a little bit closer to, May and June. And I'd much rather have that than hold a 2-1 ticket on the Celtics, who are going to be minus 135 come February. So it's not enough for me to tie up the money to back them at this point. But there may come a time at some point here over the next couple of months where maybe they start to come back and you can get 6-1, 5-1, somewhere in that ballpark. We might have a different conversation.
Yeah, I wonder if the best value on the board might be the Grizzlies 28-1 or even the Magic at 32-1. We can touch on that when we come on back.
Nope.
In the heart of winter, when nights grow long, we come together under these lights. A team, united by purpose. Fans bound by passion. Each holding a small flicker of hope in their hands. At SportsGrid, we believe that even the darkest nights can't dim the unity we share. One team, one stadium, one shining moment. This holiday season, we shine brighter together. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I remember one time, I don't know if Kenny will remember this, I said put 100 on, I think I left it on a text, put 100 on this horse that won, and then Kenny called me back later and goes, hey, I never got the text. And I'm like,
no.
Oh yeah. Remember that, Kenny?
I would never stiff anybody. He texted me as they're loading into the gate, maybe, like it's too late.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Here with Joe, I am Adam. It's the early line on SportsGrid. We're talking about the NBA, the futures market specific to some of these teams. Of course, the chalk at the top, the Celtics, the defending champs, the Thunder, the young, emerging, scrappy, really talented team, despite what you saw in that NBA Cup final against the Bucks. That was not OKC, but value down the board. I mentioned it just going into the break there, Joe. We could talk about a lot of these teams that are close to the top, that have bigger names, obviously, or guys that have been there before. What about some of these younger teams? The Grizzlies, 28-1. The Magic, who a lot of people, I will tell you this, a lot of people in Boston media circles, if you will, believe that the Magic, if healthy, and we know they're down, their top guys in Banchero and Wagner, but if healthy, might be the toughest matchup on the court, toughest matchup issue for the Celtics in the East. The Magic are 32-1. Could be a tough out in a 7-game series. Even the Rockets, who, if we're just going to respect their record and what they are under Ime Udoka so far, they're coming in at 39-1. Any of these teams have your attention?
Yeah, so listen, I mean, Houston, young, Memphis, it's all about Ja Morant. Can he stay out of trouble long enough in order to be able to get this team to where they need to go? So they are certainly have shown flashes of greatness. Can they do it consistently? And that is really what we need to see. I would love, Memphis to make a run at this. They certainly seem to have all the pieces there. Zach Edey is a welcome addition there, but it all centers to me, Memphis, with whether or not you can trust. Is Ja Morant grown up enough here now over the last year to keep his nose clean? And can he lead this team, and lead them to the playoffs and win some games and win some series? Remains to be seen here, but they certainly have the talent in order to make a run at this. And the same thing with the Houston Rockets. Although they're a little bit younger, I think they might be a year or so away, but certainly they are very scary to other teams that have been there and done that before come playoff time.
We're going to do a lot more NFL, obviously getting to our Thursday night football preview. But before we do that, we'll pick that up in the next segment. But Seahawks, they're playing tonight against the Bears, and there's a story off the field relating in part to both of these teams, and that is Seattle's longtime coach, who's not there anymore, got dismissed at the end of last year, Pete Carroll, one of the legendary NFL coaches. Say what you will, he's won championships. He's had a lot of success in the league, even though he's north of 70 now. Bill Belichick couldn't get himself a job, had to go back to the college ranks. There's interest, according to Adam Schefter of ESPN, in Pete Carroll, between Pete Carroll and the Chicago Bears. To read the tweet, Pete Carroll's expressed interest in the Bears job, would like to return to the sideline next season. One of 4 head coaches to have led his teams to both a national championship and the Super Bowl. The others, Barry Switzer, Jimmy Johnson, a couple of Cowboys, and Jim Harbaugh, who is back in the league, obviously, with L.A. after winning a title there with Michigan. Could Pete Carroll come back, actually get the job with Chicago? And if he did, this team, which as we know is just been in flux, but has a lot of talent there, starting with Caleb Williams, the number 1 overall pick, what kind of difference maker would Pete Carroll be?
What is he, 77, 76? Like, what are you doing, Pete? I don't know that anybody will take it seriously. I mean, it's nice to know that he wants to come in, but it feels like at this point, Pete Carroll's more in an advisory role than he is the day-to-day of putting him in charge as a head coach of this football team that is desperately looking for stability. You hire a 77-year-old, head coach. How much stability is there? What are we looking at?
I just looked it up. 73.
Stick a fork. Everyone's yelling that you hired Belichick at North Carolina. What do you think you're hiring at Pete Carroll there? But again, there comes risks with hiring a 73-year-old when you're looking for stability. He certainly has the track record, but is that the direction the Bears want to go? And does Pete really want to work for the McCaskey family? I mean, this is one of the worst ownership groups in the NFL outside of Cincinnati, and that's saying something there. This is not, or the Jets, but that's a whole different story. But this is not exactly an organization that has their stuff together here. Listen, they're going to go through the process. They're going to end up hiring the wrong guy again, and the cycle is just going to repeat here. I got no faith in the Bears. I even less faith in them showing up and being any sorts of in this game here tonight against Seattle. I think this is a disaster tonight. Much like the 2 blowouts we got on Christmas, I think we're headed for another blowout here tonight.
We'll do plenty on this game. Just on Pete Carroll. And you mentioned Bill Belichick. Like, Bill Belichick didn't, fail to get an NFL job because he can't coach. Bill Belichick didn't get an NFL job because of 20 years of dominance and 25 years of arrogance. He made a lot of enemies across the league. It wasn't that nobody wanted to hire him because of his coaching acumen. He's still one of the best to do it, I believe, anyway. I think that North Carolina situation is going to be interesting. Pete Carroll, I think, still has some friends in the league. He's still got a young demeanor about him. He's jacked and pumped. He relates well somehow as a 70-plus-year-old to younger guys. I mean, look, I agree with what you're saying in terms of you don't hire a 73-year-old guy to be your head coach if you're looking for stability. Sure, if you want someone to come in and be the guy for the next 5 to 10 years and hope that you're truly building something versus, name recognition, you don't do that. But you also don't, elect a 70-something-year-old president when you're looking for them to just simply not die, right? And so when it comes to Pete Carroll, I think you could bring him in as something of a short-term gap, see how it works, because he has done it.
But you're not a coach away from a championship, though. This isn't Dick Vermeil you're bringing in here with the Rams that had everything in place. They just needed the right coach. That's not what the Bears are. The Bears aren't a coach away from making a run. And Belichick had no intentions of going to a rebuild. He was only looking to go to where they were a coach away from winning. And how many teams are there that fit that category? That's the problem.
I mean, there were rumors that Belichick was interested in the Jaguars. You want to talk about rebuilds? Oh. I think he just wanted to get in, man. I think he just wanted to get back into the room, get back in the league. All right, Thursday Night Football. Seahawks, Bears. We'll talk about the game when we return.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Thursday Night Football on the way. It should be a better game, at least a closer game than what we saw on Christmas Day, because these two teams are, maybe closer to the same stratosphere than maybe what we witnessed between the Chiefs and Steelers and the Ravens and Texans. It's the Seahawks and the Bears. Now, I realize you could look at the records and say, what are you talking about? It's 8-7 versus 4-11. I just think the Seahawks are kind of an underwhelming 8-7, and the Bears are not completely and totally dysfunctional, although it does sound like that Joe here disagrees with that. But there's still some importance to this game for the Seahawks. Not end-all, be-all importance, because, the Week 18 game may be the season definer, the can they win the division ultimately and get in the NFC West, that against the, ultimately, who do we have here? Who did the Seahawks have in Week 18? I'm trying to remember here. The Rams. That's right. Thank you. So, really, you look at it here, Joe. So, in terms of the Seahawks chase for the NFC West, we have the Rams in front at 9-6. We have the Seahawks at 8-7. Cardinals and Niners, of course, eliminated. So it's two teams. We're not going to have a wild card team. I don't think so. One of these two is going to win the division. The other one is going to be staying home come the offseason. So if the Rams do beat the Cardinals, they'll more than likely win the division. If the Rams do lose, obviously, it comes down to Week 18 and this matchup between these two teams. So, this game only matters to some degree for Seattle. You'd like to win to keep pace, but the Rams control their own destiny anyway. So what kind of urgency do you think we get out of Geno Smith and company in this game tonight?
I think you get huge urgency because they know that, they lose, they're out. And they know this. And ironically enough, it's kind of crazy. But, Geno
I
Smith.
Just think that ultimately, the Rams, if they take care of business with a win this weekend, it's probably over anyway. Because don't they, don't they hold the tiebreaker?
Yes, but you're not going to let the Rams dictate whether or not you want to go ahead and do it. You don't want to be responsible for ending your own season. Arizona just did that against Carolina last week, and that wasn't fantastic. But there is no way Seattle is going in here counting on the Rams winning anything, but it won't matter what the Rams do, even if they lose. If they lose, this game. So you have two teams in totally different motivating factors here. And you got Geno Smith, who for some odd reason plays better on the road than he does at home with the 12th man behind him. It's kind of crazy. And if you look at Seattle's last 4 losses, they've played Minnesota, Green Bay, the Rams, and Buffalo. Those are all playoff teams. Those are all great teams.
Yeah.
But they are much better against the lesser teams, the under 500 teams this year. In fact, I believe 8 wins are against teams under 500 this year, and they have smacked almost all of them here. 4 1-1 against the number on the road, covering by well over a touchdown. That's 5th in the NFL. And the fact that Chicago has a minus 90 net scoring issue in the first half, meaning they are almost guaranteed to be down at the break, leads me to believe that motivating factors, Geno on the road, give me Seattle in the first half, and then come back in over the top at some point in the game if you want to do that. But I just don't see the Bears with that offensive line having any success against that defensive front of Seattle, who's going to be hungry after sort of being embarrassed here last week.
Bears have dropped 9 in a row, of course. The Seahawks, as you alluded to, 5-1 on the road. The Bears have been a better home team, though. I mean, they're 0-7 on the road. Can't do anything on the road. But this game's in Chicago, 4-4. You know, they play a better brand of football when they're on their own field. Does that matter, or do you just look at the Seahawks' advantages in terms of how they've played on the road this year and say that's enough?
They still can't score at home on the road in the first half. So home away in a parking lot, they're not well coached. They have no coach, and that's what the first half is all about. So to me, advantage Seattle in the first. If it ain't broke, minus 90 tells me, back the other team in the first half there. Not saying the back door won't be open, but again, Seattle has to win, so that might prevent the Bears from any sort of backdoor cover here as well.
We'll explore some of those half numbers and totals, some of what you just saw on your screen. We'll look at the full game lines, obviously, props. Tom Vecchio will join us in about a half hour, as he does each and every week, and help us preview Thursday Night Football. Lots more coming your way in the third and final hour of the early line right here on SportsGrid.
I'm actually not even on a side today.
Yeah.
And I'll get to that. Why are you on Texas?
I gave them a chance. Maybe not me as the overwhelming authority in college football, but entering that game on this set to you guys, I said there was one elite defense entering the matchup in Austin back to end out October. It's not the Bulldogs like it used to be. It is Texas.
College football today, only on SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
The NFL and college, they don't operate on the same timelines, right? UNLV's head coach just got, the Purdue job this morning, where I imagine, right, UNC probably needs to know from Bill.
And let's say it's late December, and we see 7, 8 teams open, and none of them want Bill. Then Bill's got to make a decision. Does he want to be a college head coach?
Pro football today, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The early line. only on SportsGrid.